Oh, good day, my friends. This is Reverend Sandy here. And first of all, I want to apologize to all who were counting on Sunday service and the sound did not come through. We have an ongoing problem. You may have noticed that the past few weeks we've not been able to stream effectively. I'm hoping that this is the week where we get all the kinks straightened out. So, having said that, I did want to bring to you a message and a meditation. And particularly because this is the first week of Advent. And as we prepare for the holidays, we can really turn it into the holiness, the holy days. So let's begin, shall we? Let's begin with prayer. Just taking a moment to center ourselves, to relax the body, to calm the mind, and we open our hearts to this moment. We open our hearts and we trust that the universe loves and supports us. We have faith that this is so. So we cherish this time together and know that there is no difference in time or space. We are always connected. And for that, we give thanks. Amen. So, under a cultural exchange program, a Christian family living in the U.S. was able to host a rabbi from Russia around the holidays. And the family wanted to give him a culinary treat and possibly one he wouldn't be able to get to in his home country. So they took him to their favorite Thai restaurant. And throughout the meal, the rabbi was really talking about all the wonders of the U.S. and how wonderful this country is, especially compared to the conditions in his country. And when the meal was over, the waiter brought each of the diners a small brass Christmas tree ornament. And everyone kind of had a chuckle when they noticed on the back of the ornament it was stamped Made in India. But the laughter subsided when the family noticed that the rabbi had tears in his eyes. And they asked if he had been offended by receiving a Christian ornament. And he said, no, that is not why I have tears in my eyes. I'm overcome. I have tears of joy to be in a country where a Buddhist gives a Jew a Christian gift that was probably made by a Hindu. So this story for me embodies the meaning of Christmas. It is trans-religious. In other words, it is bigger than one faith tradition. In that spirit of love that connects us is woven through our hearts, through our very being. So the understanding that we are one with each other, with all of creation, with the divine, is really at the heart of the Christian story for me. So we're going to go over the next 4 weeks during Advent, and we're going to go on a journey, and our destination is Bethlehem. Now, we're not going to be boarding a plane and crossing any oceans to get to Bethlehem. This is an inner Bethlehem. Hypatia Housebrook says, we know that at some time we are destined to take the mystical trip to our own inner Bethlehem, the birthplace of our higher self. So this journey will be a mystical, metaphysical adventure, if you will. And we'll also be looking at the Christmas story from a couple different perspectives, not only literally, but also metaphysically as well. We'll explore the traditions and the origins of the Christmas story, and then look at what that story means to us some 2,000 years after it happened. So I encourage you to keep your mind open as we look at some of the myths and archetypes that surround the story, and we'll look at the facts versus the truth with a capital T of the story. And we'll look at the metaphysics and mysticism, as I said. So Advent is derived from the Latin word adventus, meaning coming. Our trip will lead us to a coming of a greater awareness of the Christ consciousness within. And when I say Christ consciousness, it is that part of us that knows that we are one with the divine. It's understanding divine mind works through us. So this week is the week of preparation. In any trip we're planning to take, we have a time to prepare for it, a time to decide what to take with us to make our trip more comfortable and what to leave behind. Because there's not enough room in our backpack or our overnight bag or the overhead bin for everything that we may want to take or habitually may take. So we leave behind our judgment, our limited fears, and anything that keeps us playing small, and begin to prepare our overnight bags with what we want to bring. The first thing we'll want to bring is a good understanding of the traditional story. So we'll be taking that understanding a lot from the work of Hypatia Halsbrecht, who wrote the book, The Trip to Bethlehem. She was a Unity minister. And the basic assumption of the book is that Jesus actually lived, that the traditional Christmas story is based on that fact. And that is the basic assumption of our trip as well, this metaphysical trip that we're taking. In Unity, we believe there was such a person, that he lived and breathed and walked on this earth. We also believe that the story of this remarkable spiritual leader foretells metaphysically another truth, that we can do as Jesus did and express our higher self as we travel along this journey. So was Jesus born a virgin in a manger? Did a star pause over the manger to illuminate the sky? Did angels appear to shepherds in the nearby hills to herald his birth? And did 3 wise men come from the east to give gifts to the newborn babe? How many of these details matter to you? These questions inform most of what we've been brought up to believe as the Christmas story. So we'll take a closer look at them in this journey as it unfolds over the next few weeks. The second thing we need to pack in our bags is a good understanding of metaphysics and mysticism. Metaphysics is the foundational nature of reality, that which is underneath the physical. Mysticism is our experience with that foundation, that experience of the divine. And so these two are really intertwined. And then third, we'll want to bring an understanding of the difference between facts and truth with a capital T. And thinking about myths and archetypes. A myth may not be factual, but it holds great truth. And finally, we'll want to pack along our power of faith, because that faith is necessary for all the twists and turns of any journey. Faith is celebrated this first week in Advent. And as Hasbrook says, faith is the highest expression of belief. It is that something within which says, I believe in the possibilities of things that I cannot see. I believe in the possibility of divine mind doing in this age, right now, everything that was ever done in any age. Do we have that kind of faith? Do we have that belief that divine mind can work through you as it worked through Jesus? Do you believe that anything is possible? Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, wrote that when we believe this and hold to it, putting aside all doubt and whatever suggests failure, the thoughts of faith begin to accumulate substance and fulfillment follows. So that's a way that we can increase our faith, or the power of faith in our lives. We have all the faith that we possibly could, but we may be putting it in other things other than the power of God. So we increase it by we increase the power in our lives by putting aside all doubt, anything that suggests failure. So now that our bags are packed and we are ready to go, let's begin this journey into greater awareness and look at the metaphysics and meaning of Christmas. So what is the real Christmas story? Are you ready? Are you ready to hear what the real Christmas story is? Well, the real Christmas story is a story that lives within each one of us. It combines the elements of the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Luke, the details added throughout the centuries, as well as personal traditions that have played out in your life, whether it's visits to Santa or wrapping gifts together as a family. I don't know. It's the songs, it's the lights, it's the Christmas tree, it's Christmas morning. All those touches that make Christmas what it is to you. I can remember, it's been a while, but I can remember as a child, every Christmas Eve we would trim our tree. My mom would have a pot of spaghetti sauce on the back burner simmering, it seemed like for hours. And then we'd have dinner and we would be allowed to open one gift, just one, Christmas Eve. Christmas morning dawned and we were not allowed, my sisters and I were not allowed to come down the stairs until we heard that our parents were awake. So we'd sit at the top of the stairs, eagerly awaiting to hear any noise coming from their bedroom downstairs. And after a while, we'd move down a step, trying to get closer, move down another step until we were pretty much at the bottom step, but we were still on the stairs. We'd look around the corner to try to catch sight of the Christmas tree, and we were so happy when they finally woke up and said, "Okay, it's time." I'm sure that you have Christmas memories as well, a favorite story that lives on in you. Hypatia Hasbrook writes that each year the traditional Christmas story stirs all of us because the Christ child represents the higher self, the true self of everyone. This traditional Christmas story has at least two meanings or two ways of looking at it, which I've mentioned. The literal, which is the who, what, where, when, and how, and the metaphysical, which is what we're going to look at as well throughout this trip. The metaphysical has to do with our consciousness, seeing each everything in the story symbolize something that exists within our consciousness on a psychological, on a spiritual level. On the literal level, the Christmas story recounts a bunch of miracles that lead to the birth of Jesus. Jesus, of course, was the person who was fully human at birth and awakened to his full divinity. On the metaphysical level, the story invites us on a mystical journey within where we can find both our humanity and divinity. And at the end of the journey, we discover that the fully human part of us is also the spiritual part of us that's undergoing this human experience. Like Jesus, we are human and divine. Unlike him, though, many of us may not understand the divine part and or even acknowledge it as part of us. And that's because we've been given the gift of free will. We can choose to express our spiritual being, or we can choose not to. We can choose to ignore it. If we choose the spiritual journey, we'll find the place in consciousness where the Christ comes alive in us. And by that term, I mean the Christ consciousness, or you could call it the Buddha nature, your higher self, your divine identity, whatever you want to call it. It is that part of you that knows that you are one with the divine. If we choose not to walk that journey, then we run the risk of sleepwalking through life. So we seek today to walk with faith. In other words, to trust that the power of the universe is active in our lives and that the spiritual principles are working and that what we are holding in our thoughts, we are creating as our life experience, that God is present everywhere, in everyone, in all things. Eric Butterworth, a Unity minister, wrote that when you turn within, centering your attention on God, the center and source of being, there will come a moment of faith's fruition, and that which you perceive inwardly, you will soon be seen in the light of day. we turn within to activate that power of faith. So let's take a moment now to look at the literal story of the birth of Jesus. The birth story appears in only two of the four Gospels, Luke and Matthew. The writer of Mark, which is the earliest of the four Gospels, did not include a birth story. That Gospel begins with the ministry of John the Baptist. And the writer of John also does not cover the birth story of Jesus, although that writer certainly knew about the story because his gospel was written later than the other three. The Gospel of Luke was the earliest record of the birth story written down, and scholars believe it was written sometime between 80 and 85 CE, more than 50 years after the crucifixion. Now, I want that to sink in for you, because think about your own family stories, how they may have changed even just in a decade in the retelling of them. Matthew's version, scholars believe, was written 5 to 10 years after Luke's. And the two differ significantly because they were writing to different audiences. Matthew was writing to a Jewish audience. Luke was writing to a Greek and Roman audience. So they highlighted different things. It's unlikely for each of those writers, those authors, that an ordinary birth story would do for someone with the reputation that Jesus had at the time. In other words, a miracle birth was required, similar to that of Moses and other Hebrew Testament heroes and other spiritual leaders across traditions, across faith traditions. So perhaps the followers of Jesus reached back into antiquity and pulled out a myth from another tradition to apply to his birth. If we think about the star that moved across the night sky and stopped over the place where Jesus was born, it's sort of reminiscent from the pillar of fire that helped lead Moses and the Israelites through the desert to the promised land. So what time of year was Jesus born? Well, Matthew doesn't say, but Luke's version has the shepherds in the fields with their flock at night, indicating almost any time other than winter, because at winter time you brought your flock in to shelter them. So how do we get December 25th? Well, you may be right in thinking it had a lot to do with the solstice, the winter solstice, which takes place in late December. That celebrates the time when days begin to grow longer and the return of the light, the triumph of light over darkness. And then December 25th was also the birthday of a Persian savior, Mithra, who had been worshipped as the incarnation of light. Now, is it a coincidence that the wise men came from the east and Persia was to the east of Bethlehem? It's an interesting coincidence. And by the way, the Bible does not state that there were 3 wise men. We infer that because there were 3 gifts, but there could have been 20 of them. We don't know. It's just a wise men. So each of the gospel accounts differ, and they feel incomplete by themselves, but together, along with the additions and traditions that have been incorporated since then, form a story that points to truth with a capital T. And this truth becomes a guide for transformation, a spiritual map for our trip to our inner Bethlehem, to awakening. We take this map with us for guidance, and we have faith that we will be guided, just as the wise men faithfully followed a star, not knowing where they were headed, but trusting that it was in the perfect direction. We begin this Advent journey by activating the power of faith within through our intention and attention, knowing that we are faithfully guided as well. Brene Brown tells us faith is a place of mystery where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our fear of uncertainty. Letting go of our fear. Whew! What if we step into the mystery and not let fear prevent us from venturing out into the unknown? Or what if, as Ernest Holmes says, we could convert the energy of fear to faith, the energy of doubt and uncertainty into a feeling of belonging to the universe and being safe in it? Would not the original artist itself go forth into a new creation through us? That, my friends, is the point of the journey. So I'm going to invite you to repeat this affirmation. I walk by faith on my journey of discovery. I walk by faith on my journey of discovery. So go ahead and close your eyes or soften your gaze in front of you. Let's move into a time of meditation to incorporate this idea of faith, of transforming fear into faith, of being bold, of knowing that we are provided for. By faith, I stand firm. By faith, I meet life courageously and confidently. By faith, I see beyond appearances to the underlying good. By faith, I overcome every limitation. By faith, I know that God's power in me is greater than anything I may have to meet or overcome, that God is greater than any condition or circumstance. By faith, I am fearless and free. Faith reminds me that God is the only presence and power in my life, in the universe. By faith, I am kept steady and calm and trusting. By faith, I am assured that with God there is always a way, that with God there are always answers. By faith, I live each day joyfully and happily. By faith, I walk in the light. By faith, I am shown the way of my highest good. By faith, I am healed. By faith, I am blessed. By faith, I know that I am a spiritual being. By faith, I journey to new awareness of the Spirit of God at the core of my being. By faith, I live. Now we take a moment to just give thanks for this time together. Give thanks for the faith that is active in our lives now. And we come back in awareness to our surroundings. And I want to thank you for joining me for this Advent preparation, if you will. And hopefully we will have the live streaming all figured out for Sunday. If not, I will continue to do these lessons and a short meditation Monday morning and post them on Facebook as well as YouTube, embedded in the newsletter that goes out on Wednesday. If you do not get the newsletter you would like to, so that you can stay up on current events, just go to unityhagerstown.org and you can find the link there. I don't actually know which page it's on, but I know it's on there. So it may be on the bottom of the homepage. I'm not quite sure. You can also go on there and donate if you feel like supporting this ministry. If this ministry has helped you and you'd like to see us continue doing what we're doing and actually bringing out our vision is to really bring out this message to to everyone. So if you'd like to support that, I invite you to donate so that we can keep our doors open. And we know that your generous support is given with love, and we love and appreciate you for your generosity. That is it, my friends. Whew, that is so good to spend time with you. And I hope to see you on Facebook soon. Bye bye.